at the Green Memory Disorder Center at FAU, and we've got a group of elder care professionals, all who come at increasing quality of life for the elderly and their caregivers and their families from a different direction. So we've got 2 lawyers, we've got an accountant, we've got a home health expert, and we've got a facility expert. And each of us hears things with different ears, sees things with different eyes, and there's a combined total of probably 3,000 years of experience on this planet. So what we can do to start off is maybe just go around and introduce ourselves about what we do. And then we can go about having a discussion. The topic today is, what was the topic today?
It was the financial aspects of caregiving for the elderly. Okay. And you were speaking, I think, on the legal documents.
Okay, so we'll address those legal issues, the financial implications, but now with the input and ideas and perspectives of this multidisciplinary group.
My name is Michelle Hollister. I'm managing partner at Solkoff Legal. We're an elder law firm located in Delray Beach, and we do what you may think of with elder law, the probate, the guardianship, the trust administration, and estate planning. But a big part of the practice is being able to help people afford long-term care and be able to ensure that they have a good quality of life. I'm also president of the National Guardianship Association.
My name is Tracey Gebert. I'm a CPA with a niche practice in dealing and working with the elderly, not only to prevent financial exploitation, but also to help them maintain their dignity in their daily lives without running out of money. I do trust, estate, guardianship, and tax work as part of my practice. I went into practice for myself after working 30 years in the big world of firms, CPA firms. I'm the current chair of the FICPA Elder Planning Committee.
What does the FICPA stand for?
The Florida Institute of CPAs, as well as a professional advisor for Community Foundation of Broward.
Great. I'm Scot Solkoff. I'm a board certified specialist in elder law and principal at Solkoff Legal, where we have 5 lawyers and full complement of staff to assist the elderly, the disabled, their caregivers, and their families with achieving a higher quality of life, often in the face of long-term care issues, disability, navigating the system to make life better. I co-author the leading textbook on elder law with my father, who was one of the founders of the profession. And I enjoy an active involvement in the elder law bar statewide and nationally as past chair of the elder law section of the Florida Bar and a director of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys, where I learn even more from my very smart colleagues. So I'm looking forward to this discussion today with this really great panel.
Hi, I'm Marcia Teele. I'm the Director of Marketing and Admissions at Arden Courts, which is a specialized assisted living. We deal with problems and issues, helping families when there's dementia, Alzheimer's, different forms of dementia involved. We are a full-service assisted living. We're secure. My job is to help the families make decisions to help them help their loved ones, giving the families peace of mind, knowing they're doing the best thing they can do for their loved one. And I do consultations with families, sometimes lasting 2 or 3 hours, to find the best options. And I will help them look at their different options, and if they need other referral sources, then I'm very happy to refer them to places that are top-notch, qualified referral sources that can help them in other areas as well.
I'm Allison Greenberg-Negri. I'm an owner of ComForcareSenior Services. We're a family-owned and operated private duty home health care agency. We serve all of Palm Beach and Martin County, and we help seniors age in place, whether it be their private home, independent living facility, assisted living facility. And we believe it's the quality of care, not the severity of the disease, that improves one's quality of life.
Before we begin, I just want to say that the reason why we're here today doing it in this format, we had a scheduled event here at Florida Atlantic University to do a program for caregivers and people who are dealing with dementia. I want to take a moment because I know all of our thoughts are in Boston right now, and the reason why this format has changed is I think that everybody's home watching TV, so our prayers and thoughts remain with the victims and the families of the bombings in Boston, and all of that is kind of unraveling today on TV. So that's why we're here today, doing it in this way, rather than with the people, the caregivers that we usually would be speaking to. But we're going to take lemons and make it into lemonade by having the combined brain power of this group and just different perspectives, so that we hope that as you watch this, you can learn something and take something away about how to deal with, in this instance, the financial consequences of long-term care, and maybe spot some issues that you didn't think about before. So why don't we start off, my topic was to be the legal financial planning issues addressing long-term care. So I'll talk for a brief amount of time, and Tracey is going to talk on a similar topic from the perspective of the CPA. And then our group will together discuss these issues with our different perspectives. So with that, bottom line is money buys care. And in our system of long-term care, it is generally a for-profit system. But it's driven by money, and that's okay. That's the way our country works. But sometimes that profit motive does not coincide with quality of care or the best interests of you or your loved one. So leveling that playing field is really important, and understanding how to use the rules and laws to your advantage and level the playing field a little bit. Knowledge is everything. And so as with everything else in life, if you know how to work the system and understand it better, I firmly believe that you will have a better result. Certainly greater peace of mind going into it, because you have a plan, as opposed to things just happening to you and responding every time something bad happens. Because most of the things that are going to happen to all of us, and these are things that we can plan for, just by knowing how to work the system. So by taking some steps ahead of time, you can greatly increase your grasp on the steering wheel, so that your car is not spinning out of control. You're not dodging speed bumps. You're really making decisions. You're directing the course. And that makes all the difference in the world. And I'll just give you a brief example of that. And I know that the others here today can understand this one. This is an easy way to think about the benefit of planning ahead. It's not so much a legal issue, but it's one of the biggest issues we see. The number one way people enter nursing homes. Now, I should ask, how many of you want to go to a nursing home? I see all the hands going up. Nobody wants to go to a nursing home. Nobody in their right mind, right? It's not a good place to be, but people have to go, because this is the only place we can go to get around-the-clock skilled care with all of the care that we need, and all of the durable medical equipment and the nurses and everything else. The number one way people enter a nursing home is not because they wake up one day and say, I want to go. It's something bad happens, some precipitating event. Maybe it's a fall or an aggravation of illness or something like that. They go to the hospital first. And then out of the hospital, they're discharged. But the way that discharge happens is sometimes a shock to people, even though this happens every day, thousands of times every day. When it happens to you, it's a shock, and you're not prepared for it. And that is, somebody says to you, or typically to your family member because you're too sick at this point, somebody says, Mom is going to be discharged tomorrow. Where do you want her to go? The doctor has prescribed rehabilitation in a facility. Which facility do you want Mom to go to? Number one answer?
I don't know.
I don't know. How would you? How could you know which is the best facility for you when that happens? You unlikely are an expert in all of the local facilities and which director of nursing just left and who's good at this particular type of therapy. So you don't know. And so you say that, I don't know. Where do you think I should go? Where do you think mom should go? And so the discharge planner at the hospital may have it all figured out, and they have a place that they'll tell you about. And frankly, it often is not going to be the best placement, okay? Because there was no plan ahead of time. This is a scramble plan. You know, who's got space? And sometimes who has the relationships? Now, the person that goes into the nursing home that way, that's one person that kind of just got routed through the system. There's another type of person, and that's the person that had a plan. What happens if I have to go into a nursing home? Where am I going to go? How am I going to get in? What do I say and what do I make sure I don't say? How am I going to pay for it? How am I going to ensure that when I'm there, I'm going to get the highest quality of care? There are people that actually plan for that. Which do you want to be, right? And I can tell you that here in Southeast Florida, the difference among nursing homes can be very great. I'd say that the difference between the top 5 or 6 nursing homes in our community and the next level down is night and day. I want my loved ones, my clients, to be in the top 5 or 6 nursing homes if they have to go to a nursing home. But that doesn't happen by accident. It happens because they had a plan. Because I'm not the only one, we're not the only ones who know who all the good nursing homes are. And because they're known, at least in the elder care community, they may be harder to get into, certainly if you hadn't planned ahead, right? So this is just an example of the difference between the planner and the person who just lets things happen or denies that it will ever happen to them so they don't need to plan, right? So a good plan, this is the view from 50,000 feet. I don't want people to go to nursing homes, but I want everybody to plan as if they will. And so a good plan for care, when we get into our older years and we know that we're going to need more help, or we've got a diagnosis, or we've got dementia, or we've got some kind of issue that we know is going to require more attention, more care, our goal at that point is to remain as independent as possible, to have as high a quality of life as possible. Typically that means staying at home for as long as possible, maybe in an assisted living facility as long as possible. And then if they have to move, then they've got a plan because they planned ahead and they know where they're going to go if they need a nursing home. So the difference in level of care between staying at home with good home health and being in an assisted living facility is similar, a little different, and you'll hear more from the panelists about that. But it's similar in that it's custodial care as opposed to skilled care. Nursing home is skilled medical care, right? We want to plan for that whole continuum. Staying at home as long as possible, if that be the wish. Being in a good assisted living facility and understanding the differences between them. Being able to pay for that and obtain good care. And then if we have to go to a nursing home, making sure we've got a plan for that as well. And there are 3 ways to pay for long-term care. We have our own pot of money, which for most of us is limited. We have long-term care insurance. Some people have long-term care insurance. And then there's government benefits, need-based government benefits, because still in America we have no national health care system. Even the Affordable Care Act, the national health care system that is currently being rolled out, does nothing to address long-term care. So we're on our own, and really what the government wants us to do is to spend down our own money, and they actually use that term in the law, spend down. And when we spent down to the government's established poverty limits and used any long-term care insurance we were fortunate to have, then the government will step in. The problem then, of course, is we've got little or nothing left to pay for everything that the government doesn't cover. And so the goal of good planning from a financial perspective, a legal financial perspective, is to set up a plan where not only do we understand about the facilities, about the home health care, and how to obtain it, but how we're going to pay for it by using these three pots of money wisely. Our own pot of money, any long-term care insurance that we might have, and these need-based government benefits. And when I say need-based government benefits, I mean Medicaid most commonly, and sometimes VA benefits, sometimes other programs. Medicaid is a state and a federal program, so we're dealing with state rules and laws and federal rules and laws. VA is all federal. The VA generally applies for purposes of long-term care, typically only to wartime veterans or their spouses. Medicaid applies to everybody who meets certain tests, and I'm going to briefly cover those tests, give you a very brief synopsis of how we deal with that legally, and then I'm going to be quiet. Now, I'm a lawyer, I can talk forever.
I'm not saying.
You're not saying anything? So, the VA will pay approximately up to about $2,000 a month towards the veteran's unreimbursed medical expenses, and about half of that for the surviving spouse of the veteran. Medicaid pays for nursing home care and home and community-based services. Now, we're here in Florida. Medicaid, we have 51 different Medicaid programs in the United States. And then even within each state, we have different programs. In Florida, we have two main programs that are the most important for people for long-term care. One is called the Long-Term Care Diversion Project, which is a program that is designed to divert me away from a nursing home, help me stay out of that nursing home longer so that I can remain more independent. Cost the state less money. I'm better off. So this is a win-win-win. The state saves money and I'm better off. And because it's such a win-win-win, the government has figured out a way to mess it up. And that's because of funding problems. So sometimes they just flat run out of money. And then a wait list develops. And that's where we're at right now with the diversion program. Yet having said that, even though sometimes there's a wait list, as there is now, we still have hundreds of clients currently on this program that are, I'm sure, some of whom would be in nursing homes if it were not for this program. So they are now in assisted living facilities, getting help from Medicaid, or at home getting services from Medicaid, and they're staying out of a nursing home because of it. So it helps people, it's a good program. We just wish that it were more consistent. But we still work this program whenever we can to our clients' benefit, to remain more independent, out of that nursing home longer. Then we have nursing home Medicaid. And in Florida, Medicaid will pay the full bill at even the Rolls Royce of nursing homes, less the patient's income. And for purposes of income, typically, we are concerned only with Social Security and sometimes pension. So that would be, if I'm going into the nursing home, called my patient responsibility amount. Now, a nursing home in our neck of the woods, about $8,000 a month. Right? Average in Palm Beach County is $7,300 a month, but most of my clients don't want to be in an average nursing home, and they're paying more with all the extras and everything else. So if I'm private paying, I'm going to be paying about $8,000 a month for a semi-private room, a shared room in a nursing home. Most people can't afford to do that for too long without getting wiped out. So Medicaid, if I can qualify for, it's called ICP Medicaid, Institutional Care Program, it'll pay the whole bill, less my Social Security and pension if I qualify. And so we're talking about thousands of dollars a month of savings. Now, when we look at Medicaid and VA, we're not looking at protecting assets out of greed, we're looking at it almost out of necessity. Because if we don't do it, we're going to be solely reliant on the government dole and have nothing left of our own savings to be able to pay for the things that are going to make a difference in life. So when we look at Medicaid, VA, asset protection planning from a legal context, what we're really doing is looking at the government's rules and laws about how they count assets, because in order to qualify for these programs, You have to be below certain limits. I'll cover in a moment. So what we want to do is take these countable assets, and rather than spend them all and be indigent and then go on benefits, we want to take these countable assets and, using the rules and laws, make them non-countable so that we can get care still, have extra funds available to pay for the things that aren't being covered by the government benefits. Do so in a legal, moral, ethical way. And if we do that, we got our own pot of money and we have the government's pot of money to be able to get more and better care, rather than spending everything and being solely reliant on whatever the government chooses to pay for. And there's more than one right way to legally protect assets and income. Every method has advantages and disadvantages, but they're all infinitely better than spending everything down and not having anything left, because money does buy care, and care means a higher quality of life. So there are many ways that elder law attorneys help their clients. Usually it means more legal documents, advising people on how to title assets and change things around in such a way that the money is safe. Giving it away doesn't help. In fact, it hurts typically, because it means look-back periods and penalties for eligibility. So we have to be smarter about it and really use those rules and laws to our advantage, to the point where we show the government everything that we're doing. We're certainly not hiding anything, but we want to do what we can within the law to protect ourselves. So that's a very big part of elder law planning. And I would say, and finally, that in addition to protecting the assets, that doesn't help unless we know what to do and say and how to protect ourselves and our families in other ways. And that's where really good, well thought through powers of attorney, healthcare directions, trust agreements, these documents come in. But it's the planning, the thinking, the understanding how to use the rules and laws that really make the difference. So I'll stop there for now. Want to take it from here?
Okay. He's hard to follow up with, but everything Scott says, I'm a certified public accountant and have been for 30 years. And about 20 years ago, there was a shift in how people were living longer and how to deal and be more proactive instead of reactive in dealing with this aging process. When if my grandparents lived into their 70s, I was quite fortunate. And now people are living into their 100s, and it's how we care and pay for them. So when you look back and you say, well, why is a CPA and how can my CPA help me? We are beneficial in that we get to meet with our clients every single year, sometimes even more than once a year. I think it's kind of apropos that I'm coming off an April 15th deadline and a tax deadline, but in actuality and reality, that is the crux of where I get my information from my clients, is through tax season, either through, which I like to encourage other CPAs to do, is I get to meet face to face with my clients and find out not only what's going on in their world financially, but in their familiar dynamics. Has something changed? Are there special needs children? Is there a divorce? Is there some sort of dementia or early stage Alzheimer's or other illnesses that are affecting them, and how to deal with that? So as their CPA, I'm not only just doing their taxes, I have an opportunity to assist them to get them to the right professionals, such as what we are with our panel today, in talking to them and planning and being proactive so they aren't impoverished and they don't outlive their assets, because at the end of the day, this generation wants to leave money behind for their families, but also to be able to live their lives with dignity. And that's why I got involved. I saw this need to help the aging not only protect what they've worked so hard for, but also to plan for their future, not outlive their assets, to have quality of life. And in doing so, as Scott mentioned, there are many different areas we need to address. Being that I've just met with my clients, there are different situations that take place when you're doing a tax return. You have to look at what's going on with their portfolio and with their assets. A lot of, unfortunately, I do financial exploitation, forensic accounting, and a lot of those type situations become apparent when you're looking at their tax documents and their financial records. Powers of attorney, making sure all their legal documents, that's a question I ask my clients every single year. The power of attorney form changed in 2011, I believe, October 1st. And a lot of clients have powers of attorney that, number one, the person they designated as their power of attorney is no longer capable of serving as that role. Perhaps they're no longer around, or for whatever reason, they are not the right choice of person to step in their shoes should they not be able to make a financial decision. And we notice this also on wills. We have a lot of people that moved in from other states, and their wills are really no longer effective and really are going to be able to help their plan of where they want their assets to go should something happen. And they really need to visit, because most of my clients have documents that are 30 years old plus. So most important when I meet with my clients is to stress, are your legal documents up to date? And that's where I start using elder law attorneys and estate and trust attorneys, because there is that need to work together as a team. And I think that's somewhat new in the last 5-6 years that I've noticed, is that we need to work, you have to have people from all different aspects of the profession working together, instead of, well, the financial planner's here and he doesn't know what the CPA is doing or what their situation is financially. Then there's the caregiver who doesn't know what's going on and who the financial people are and what the plan in place is. And so my goal and reach to the public, which was what we were hoping to do today, is to educate that bring your team of professionals together and let everyone be talking and working together to help you in the best way forward. If I work with someone, and I do with Scott and Michelle, I know that my clients that there is a plan in place, that their legal docs are up to date should they need to go into the diversionary program or to have a plan of how they're going to live the rest of their lives, that there is something in place. Because to work in a crisis situation in any area of elder planning it's just, you're behind the 8 ball. You're scrambling and there's emotions involved and it's not the best plan. So number one, when I meet with my clients is I always recommend that they look at their powers of attorney, their healthcare proxies, their wills, their trusts. I mean, there are trusts out there that are just no longer effective. Some trusts have never been funded before. And so the whole spectrum of planning, and as the government changes the tax laws, changes everyone's plan of how they're going to dispose of their assets or what's going to happen to their assets, or God forbid, if they do have to go into skilled nursing or any kind of in-home care, that there's resources to pay for it without impoverishing an entire family. And so my goal as a CPA is not only to do taxes, is to find out what's going on. And because I have that opportunity and privilege to meet with my clients every single year, I am the first person that says that to them. And I can say I'm getting a much better reaction and feedback. I had a gentleman who lost an example, I had a gentleman, a longtime client, 35 years, who lost his wife, and I knew he only had one daughter. And so I started talking to him when I was doing his taxes, and he said he would call me after tax season, and this was about 1.5 years ago. Well, in talking to him, it turned out his daughter wasn't quite happy in her marriage. And the thing about when you leave money straight out to individuals, sometimes what could happen is something you never planned for. We always hope our monies will go down the familiar line. And sometimes it doesn't go that way. It goes this way, where people have appointed themselves as their self-appointed guardians. They're going to help them. And so the idea is, let's protect you. And let's put something in place should the God forbid, or you're no longer capable of making decisions, financial decisions, because of a diminished capacity in mental or physical health. And so I talk to my clients about what's going on in your family. And I think we stopped, in the world of internet and software and online everything, we started monetizing our businesses instead of talking to our clients. And I think our aging population did have one thing right, and they talked, and they knew that was going on. And I think my almost mission was to get people talking again. You have these family get-togethers, be it a holiday or a birthday or a wedding or a quince or a bar mitzvah, whatever it is, and you have these, the original close family, not the extended relatives. If there's a trusting situation in place and there's no dynamics taking place that would prevent this, start having these conversations, because the aging generation, number one, has always been very private about their financial matters, and they're actually hindering the ability to deal with any sort of crisis when children or relatives are scrambling to find out where the bank accounts are, where's the legal papers, because they were private. That was the way they were raised. So to encourage these open lines of communication, I've learned has really made families closer. And because I don't think our parents or grandparents ever intended for our lives to be difficult in helping them. And we are in a sandwich generation where we're caring not only for our own children, but for our parents. And we are their advocates, and we have to be. In this world of a maze of decisions and issues that take place, just to go through getting public assistance or using your monies to help pay for care, and which is the best facility, and who is the best care management company, and who is the best home health care agency. It's so overwhelming, and if you don't have the right people who are knowledgeable in that area, then it just makes it that much more difficult and emotionally draining. And the number one issue in family caregiving, or if you are helping a relative, is the emotional strain and drain of caring for someone. And so our goal as CPAs is not only, because we are in this unique position to deal with our clients on an annual basis, was to encourage not only to open up lines of communication with their family back to, because I stepped away from my story, my client's daughter was not happy in his marriage. We set up a trust, and so we know now all his assets and his wealth that he worked so hard to amass is going to his daughter and his grandchildren, and not to this spouse who could technically get their hands on it. I mean, it's just, we live in a high rate of divorce, unfortunately, and people making bad choices for financial gain. And the goal is to try to put things into place that prevent that. So number one is, I talk to my clients about what's going on in their lives. Do you need an elder law attorney? Is there something going on with diminished mental or physical capacity that, let's look at your long-term care documents. What kind of policy was it? Is it per diem? Is it reimbursement? How long were the benefits good for? Because a lot of people struggle with independence and they'd like to maintain that, and yet it can actually bring quality of life and peace of mind knowing there's someone in there who's another set of eyes. But you have to have the right company and the right people in place. Number two is what we encourage is to make sure that we know how much money they have to live on. I'm not a financial planner. There are CPAs who are financial planners. Is we need to know how to make their monies work for them. And if that's going to assist them or hurt them in getting public assistance, because as we know, the average cost of in-home care for if you needed someone 24/7 is going to be well over 6 figures. And that can impoverish a millionaire in a very short amount of time, because we're just talking about the cost of care, of having someone in your home. And there has to be a plan in place or something in place, and not to do something to hurt your ability to get other assistance and draw on other resources. There was a lot of talk about reverse mortgages umpteen years ago, 5, 6 years ago, and everyone thought that's the best thing, I'm gonna go get a reverse mortgage. Well, that's not for everyone, and it got abused, and that's the problem. There are so many things that you can do, and instruments and tools you can use, but because there's abusivenesses in these areas, they get a bad rap. Annuities, reverse mortgages, looking at your long-term care policies. So as a CPA, we have that ability to find out really what's there, what's in place. Our families tend to gift, and that could actually hinder and destroy a plan of being able to qualify for benefits. And so what I do as a CPA, my area being tax and elder planning, and being proactive and having a plan in place and talking to my clients and encouraging them to talk to family members if they're able to. In some cases, it's a family member that could be abusing them financially or emotionally, and then you have to draw upon other people or other steps and processes and plans to assist them. Is being the eyes and ears of our clients, is then I can then draw upon to know the right people to refer them to. And that's where that almost like a quarterbacking of a team, not that I think we should be the quarterback, but we do see our clients. We make sure the trusts are funded because the attorneys do great jobs in setting up these plans, but it's the clients don't follow through all the time. And they can really destroy back, a year or so ago, not even a year ago, months ago, we didn't know where the estate tax was going. And so everyone scrambled to do these big, complicated plans, and we didn't know where our government was going. Well, we do now have a permanent estate tax, and so it gives us the ability to then work within that process too, of saying, okay, we no longer have to worry about estate taxes, so now what do we need to worry about? And so quarterbacking the team, I can refer to someone like Scot or Michelle to know that my clients are going to not outlive their assets and that there's going to be something left behind. But also working with home health, with Allison or with Marica, is that I know they're going to be in the best facility for their particular situation, or that if they want to age in home, which is always encouraging, is that they have the best person in place. We live in Florida, which unfortunately gets a bad rap for everything, is we do have a lot of elder exploitation. We were the top state in identity theft. And these are things, as professionals, we can work together to help keep our clients out of these situations, or God forbid, if they find themselves a victim of, let's just say, identity theft, which really came about through tax filings. That was really your number one red flag, that there was some sort of identity theft taking place is when we were filing their tax returns, is that there are a group of people and professionals that do care about the aged or people that cannot make their own decisions. And if we're working together and educating the public to call upon us as professionals, not to look at us as, oh my God, that's going to cost me so much money, because in the long run, it's going to save you peace of mind. It's going to save your family peace of mind. It's going to actually add quality of life. And I don't think to be dollar wise and pound foolish is the money you spend with a professional today. It's going to save you so much money in the long run, because you're not going to make those wrong turns and go off on detours or trust the people you shouldn't trust, because in this industry there are some really quality people that know they know their business, they know the right places to go. And that's our goal, is to educate the public and yourselves on how to work with these professionals.
Tracey, you mentioned elder exploitation and these issues that sometimes come about when people are of diminished capacity. And there are two things that happen to folks that we see when incapacity strikes. Some folks have themselves ahead of time planned ahead and done powers of attorney, trusts, healthcare surrogate designations, and the like, to appoint some trusted person who can step in and do for them if they cannot do for themselves. And that's what we would call a self-delegation of authority, right? And then there are people who don't have that, didn't get that done, or didn't get it done the right way. And then there's guardianship. And Michelle, this year you happen to be president of the National Guardianship Association. What is guardianship? And how do people avoid it?
You know, there's a theme here and all about the planning, and that's what I'm hearing, and it's planning. That's how you avoid guardianship, because guardianship is a court process. It's time consuming, it's expensive, and I say often, I may be unpopular with the guardianship folks when I say this, but I wish guardianship didn't exist. Now, it's always going to exist because there's always going to be people who didn't plan or for a variety of other reasons are going to need to utilize a guardian. But it is avoidable most of the time, a majority of the time. It's a court process. The court has to, because you didn't self-delegate while you still had capacity, the court has to then choose somebody for you because you can no longer make decisions for yourself. When you involve the court, you involve attorneys, and attorneys can be expensive. The court is so backlogged because of budget cuts that it can take a very long time for these cases to move through the court system. So you and your family could be faced with a situation where something needs to happen for you, something important, like maybe a change in residence, and it can't happen because there's a paper sitting on a judge's desk somewhere that they just can't get to. So there's a variety of reasons, and I can go on and on and on about them, of why people should avoid guardianship. But really, when you stop and think about, if you didn't plan and you didn't take the time to do an advance directive, some judge who went to law school, who does not know you, you are a number on a piece of paper, is going to decide if you can have the money to live somewhere, who's going to help you with your healthcare decisions, who's going to, maybe even where your bank would be, things that we take for granted. Some random person you don't know may have to do that for the rest of your life. That's an awesome thing to think about. It happens more often than not. And like I said, it's avoidable the majority of the time. What I usually say to people when I'm trying to make the point that they need to be thinking of these issues is similar to when you said, who wants to go to a nursing home. I'll usually say, have you thought about what happens if you don't make it home tonight? Because if you didn't take the time, if you don't have a durable power of attorney or a healthcare advance directive, and you don't make it home tonight, whether you're in a car accident or something worse happens, who's going to be able to make sure that get into the house because you have a pet in there that needs to be walked or fed, or a child to be picked up from school, or a bill to be paid? Things that just we do every day and don't think about. If you don't have these documents in place, there is nobody who legally can do them. So it's important that we all have these documents and avoid guardianship.
And I think a lot of people think, well, we're fairly young. We're young, we don't need them yet. I feel like it's never, correct me if I'm wrong, it's never too young to get the documents done.
Everybody 18 and over needs to do this. When I was in Tallahassee working for Governor Bush and Governor Christ, I tried very hard to get some legislation passed where when children got their driver's permits, because usually everybody touches the system at that point, and it's rare to find somebody who doesn't want to drive, for them to be educated that once they turn 18, mom and dad do not have the ability, just because they're mom and dad, to go in and do these things. You're an adult in the eyes of the law. So it's very important, and we actually now are seeing, especially with the baby boomer generation who are going through these issues with their parents, now want, with their college-age children, they're bringing them in because they're recognizing their kids are going off to school, whatever it may be. I really should have their durable power of attorney and healthcare advance directive, so it's a really good point.
Do you see people, when they come to you in a home health context, what's their level of preparation financially and legally?
The majority do have power of attorney. We deal a lot with long-term care insurance companies, and so we always have to talk to the power of attorney to verify the benefits. They get coverage, we do the assignment of benefits, we take care of everything for them. It's a lot for the family members that are out of town. So good portion are prepared, at least in terms of power of attorney. When we do our case openings, we check for a DNR and healthcare directives to make sure that they're on the refrigerator, the caregiver knows in the event of an emergency, to make sure that those papers get to the appropriate emergency response team, so that person's wishes are adhered to.
One of the things that we struggle with in elder law is we take great pride. I know in our office we take great pride in the documents that we draft. We're not using forms. In fact, we write the forms and put them in books, but we take great pride in these. And in our healthcare documents, I know I'm a lawyer and I think about it from the legal perspective. And if a judge has to look at this, I want the judge to be able to rule in my client's favor, to be able to give them as much dignity and independence as possible about their own healthcare decisions. So we do that, and we get doctors' input, ethicists, but we can draft the best document in the world, and if it's not there when they need it, it does no good.
Right.
So, we've struggled with the portability issue. How do you make sure that people have it? So, we now, of course, we can scan them in and we have them digitally. Mm-hmm. We can email them. There are some internet solutions. But the best way we've figured out thus far of doing it is, if I have a problem and I collapse, God forbid, in the mall or something like that, and I can't communicate, to the paramedics, I can't tell them my name, I can't tell them whether I have a living will or who to call, but they have to look at my driver's license. So what we've done now, even though there's no state law that says these things can be contained in your driver's license, I think eventually we're going to head there. What we've done, and I'll show you this is my wallet. I kind of have a money clip wallet now. This is my driver's license. Right behind my driver's license, don't look at my picture, is this card. And it says, living will, healthcare documents, and emergency contacts are on this drive, because the paramedics have got to look at who I am. So they got to look for that driver's license. So they pull this out, and believe it or not, this is a computer card. It's a flash drive. But we had it fabricated to be the size of a credit card. It's a little thicker. And this little dongle pops out, and it goes into the computer, and it can be accessed. So my kids' names or whomever my healthcare surrogates are pops up. The phone numbers pop up. My document is on here, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to use it when they see it in here, or even that they'll see it. But it has helped our clients in the past, and it's another way that they can transport it. I would encourage people who have their advance directives to always give a copy to their doctor, to their home health agency, to the facility where they reside. Now, you probably require that, right?
We do require it, but you would be so amazed how many times I talk to people that come in to inquire for information. I always ask them, do you have durable power of attorney? And they sometimes look at me like a deer in the headlights. Well, maybe somebody in the family has it. We're not really sure. And so we have that conversation first and foremost, because I tell them, I can educate you on what you need to know going forward for the care for your loved one. But if you don't have that durable power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, living will, I said, it's going to be all useless. You need those documents. So if they know they have them, I'll say to them, where are they? Oh, well, we're not sure. They might be in a file cabinet, but they might be at the lawyer's office. They might be up north where our summer home is. So now the conversation proceeds to find the documents, look at them, read them. Sometimes they don't remember who they assigned as a power of attorney or a backup power of attorney. Sometimes I get adult children who are named, and I'll say, okay, your brother and your sister, have power of attorney, but if something, were to happen to you, but is it individual? Is it joint? They're not sure even how it's set up. And it's really important for the families to have that conversation and to find these documents and to update them if necessary. So we have that conversation first off, before we even go any further, and because I do want to know who the power of attorney is, many times I'm getting inquiries from the extended family who really aren't the decision makers. These are not the decision makers, and we want to know who that power of attorney is so that we can communicate with that decision maker, because the extended family can get all the information, but if the decision maker is not educated, again, you're not going to get the best for your care, knowing, what they don't know.
Mm-hmm. What is the difference between, just very basically, between an assisted living facility and a skilled nursing facility?
I get that question all the time, and it's really an education to not only the caregivers, but I think a lot of the professionals out there, a lot of the physicians, they need to actually be more educated about the options too. I had a nice lady who came crying into my office in tears, and her husband had dementia. And she said, the doctor, the primary care physician, the doctor told me my husband needs a nursing home. And I said, okay, let's just talk about it. And so we talked about her husband, his needs, where he was with the dementia, different things, questions that I asked to ascertain, about a picture of him. And it turned out that no, he did not need a nursing home. In reality, he needed dementia care that could be given in an assisted living facility, which is going to be less expensive. It's going to be more of a home-like environment. It's going to be less clinical. It's going to be a place where he can have quality of life, still be happy, safe, and healthy, but he's not going to need a nursing home, which, again, nobody wants to go to a nursing home unless they're forced to. And so it gave her options. And so she was so happy, but there's a lot of misinformation out there given not only by your friends and family, but also some of the other professionals. So we're all here trying to get on the same page and have all
How
of
much
these.
does it cost?
The cost varies. If you're talking about what I call a regular assisted living, that would be for someone who doesn't have dementia, can do many things on their own, but maybe they just need some help with dressing, bathing. They need someone to check every morning, make sure that they didn't have a problem at night. Maybe they don't want to cook anymore. Maybe they don't want to clean anymore. Maybe they need transportation to the store because they don't drive anymore. That would be a person that could go into a traditional, regular assisted living facility. However, if a person has been diagnosed with dementia, any type of dementia, they're more at risk and they need a higher level of care. And that's my kind of facility where I've been for the last 13 years. And it is a specialized assisted living for dementia care where the facility is secure. It's not a lockdown. It's not something that it sounds scary to people. People are afraid of dementia because they're afraid that they're going to be locked up, put away. And it's not like that. I mean, I guess there are some places that might be like that. That's why you have to know where to go and you need to check it out. But the care that is given for someone with dementia in assisted living is just like the care in a regular assisted living, except it's more so. There are nurses there to make sure that the person gets their medications, make sure that they are administered properly, make sure that they triage things that can be a problem. Things that are in assisted living that you could never really have at home or you could never really afford to have at home. So you get 24-hour care with assistance with all your activities of daily living, which includes bathing, dressing, toileting, eating, walking, those kinds of things that are what you expect to get help with. And in addition to that, there are lots of things in assisted living that are going to not only help the resident there, but they're going to help the caregiver as well. A nursing home, on the other hand, a nursing home is for skilled care. It's for someone that has maybe a medical condition that the license of the assisted living is not allowed to do by law. That would be things like feeding tubes, IVs, those kinds of things that are medically necessary in a skilled facility. Also, somebody that is a threat to themselves or others is not appropriate to be in an assisted living. And the key word for that is that can't be managed. So if someone is a threat to themselves or others that cannot be managed, then you have to look at a different care option. And the manage is the key word, because you can manage different behaviors and scenarios different ways. And so you want to work with your healthcare providers in managing that so that you can stay in an assisted living and not have to go onto a nursing home. So there are certain guidelines that would define whether someone was appropriate for assisted living or whether they were more appropriate for skilled nursing. So when someone comes in and sits with me, we talk about that. I ask lots and lots of questions because I want to get the big picture. I want to find out what this person is all about. I want to find out the family dynamics. I want to find out who's in charge. I want to find out their health issues. I want to find out about their personalities. I want to find out about what they like to do. I want to find out, who they were, what did they do in a prior life, because all of these things are important for the decision-making process, because you want to be able to have a person come into the right assisted living, into the right environment that's going to make them a successful candidate. And so when we're ascertaining all this information and looking at it and getting the big picture, then I can say, at least on paper, I haven't met your person yet, which that will follow, but on paper I can say this person is totally appropriate for assisted living, or this person is totally appropriate for dementia care assisted living, or this person really needs skilled nursing. Sometimes it's borderline, and so we're going to go out as healthcare professionals and we'll do, at least we will do a complimentary consultation, and we will meet that person to look at them in person, and we want to see how they walk, how they talk, get a feel for their personality, and educate the family and help them make that best decision for what's right for that client. And the environment, as you all know, makes all the difference in the world. So you want to make sure that you're placing someone in the appropriate environment, the best environment for that particular person, because not one fits all.
Yeah. And how about if I want to, and by the way, I've been to your facility and I find it to be very resort-like. If I was on vacation, this is what it would look like to me. I'd move in a heartbeat if you would take me.
You can get on the waiting list.
Okay. Allison, if I want to remain at home, what does that mean? What kind of person comes into my home to help me, and how much is that going to cost me? How can I afford it?
Well, the type of person that comes in it's a caregiver. To be perfectly honest, we tell all of our clients in South Florida, it wasn't a choice between caregiver school and law school. But these people are extremely caring. They are educated. They're all home health aides or CNAs. They're all certified. We don't hire companion level caregivers. The way caregivers work in the home, there is a companion license under the state of Florida. Legally, that caregiver cannot touch a client. So if that client falls, they have to call 911. So we want somebody that is able to actually help lift that client as they're calling 911. So they are certified home health aides or CNAs. They come into the home. The caregivers that we vet are the top 20% of the caregiver pool in South Florida. They're educated, they're caring, they have experience. We do Alzheimer's and dementia specific training for our caregivers over and above what's required by ACA, which is the state licensing board. We also provide them additional in-services and training. We do a lot for Holocaust survivors in South Florida, so we provide our caregivers with Holocaust training. Holocaust caregiving is very different than caring for a non-Holocaust survivor. If you take a Holocaust survivor to a doctor and they put a wristband on, that has a very different meaning. So our caregivers need to understand that when they're going into the homes of clients like that. We do Jewish cultural training. 65% of seniors in South Florida are Jewish. We want our caregivers to know that you can't make our client a ham and cheese sandwich if they keep a kosher home. The importance of lighting candles on Friday night. So we really try and go over and above to train our caregivers and make sure that they're doing what's best for the family. In terms of cost, it varies. If they have long-term care insurance, that's terrific. Being a national franchise, we contract with 3 long-term care companies. So we do offer national discounted rates for certain companies, but we accept all long-term care. And depending upon the policy, the rack rate is about $18 an hour for care, $200 a day for a live-in. But of course, depending upon the situation, we want to work with the family to do what's in their family member's best interest. So if it means keeping them home and negotiating a little bit, we're more than willing to do that. So there is flexibility. We also take aid and attendance, which are the veterans benefits that Scott mentioned earlier. And then if it's an auto accident, we can do auto insurance as well.
I have a question, because the number one thing I get, having that we're dealing with this generation, and it's something I don't do. There are a lot of programs out there that are available for assistance, or decisions you have to make, like when Medicare Part D came out, and I swear you had to be a rocket scientist to figure out on an annual basis which is the best plan, and who do you trust to tell you which is the best plan, because my experience is you can't trust your current insurance company, because you can find yourself in this maze of such extreme expense. Like, clients didn't understand the whole donut hole, which was quite eye-awakening when they found they were responsible for the next $3,000 of pharmaceutical care, and didn't realize that in choosing their Medicare Part D, which has now become a little more palpable to help them or guide them to the right people. My question is, a lot of people don't know the difference between home health care versus registry versus companion aid. And I know what I have to deal with on my side, but in making those recommendations, which is the best way to go? Because there's these registry aids that all come from, it seems to feed off the same agencies. And when you're referring a client to this kind of home care, because they come to us and say, who do you recommend? How do we answer that? How do we as CPAs refer that? And what's the difference?
There's a couple of primary differences. With a registry, none of the differences necessarily have to do with quality of care. A lot of times the caregivers that work for an agency will also go register with a registry. So just at some level, the caregivers could be the same, regardless of who you're referring. So it has to do with the operation of the agency or registry. But the fundamental differences are, as a registry, the caregivers are 1099 independent contractors. They are all licensed, they are not bonded, they're not insured. So when a registry places a caregiver into your family's home, your family becomes the employer. They become responsible for the employment taxes, they become responsible for the insurance, and they say, well, I have homeowner's insurance, my liability will cover it. No, it doesn't. If you have an unlicensed professional in your home, your homeowner's insurance will not cover an accident. So that's a big problem. As an agency, all of our caregivers are W-2 employees. They work for me. So they're licensed, bonded, and insured. They all have automobile insurance. We have supplemental insurance. We have professional liability. We carry the workers' comp. We carry the umbrella policy. So it takes the responsibility off of your family members. The other main difference is that a registry, under the state of Florida license, is not legally allowed to train their caregivers. So we go in, we open every case with an RN assessment. Our nurse goes in, she provides a care plan after spending a few hours with the family and talking about the medical history, the medication profile, what they need, just a safety assessment of the house. She then talks one-on-one with the caregiver that's going into that home to prepare them for the situation that they're dealing with. That's considered in-home training. A registry can't do that. If they open a case with a nurse assessment, which they would do for an insurance company, they then have to provide that care plan to 85-year-old mom with Alzheimer's. 85-year-old mom with Alzheimer's has to explain it to the caregiver. That doesn't always work so well. So that's another primary difference.
And I'm glad you did bring up one thing, and I can say because it just brings so many things to the forefront of my mind that we're dealing with. When you have someone in your home, and you mentioned, Allison, about the insurance, is your regular property insurance is not going to cover accidents in the home. And so we will also recommend and look at the various different, do you have an umbrella policy? There's the whole issue of driving your patient, your client around, and whose car should you be driving in? And all these issues that come up, because we know when we have an elderly person who may not have all their motor skills and their defensive skills to react so quickly, it's scary for me to drive down here, nonetheless, my 85-year-old dad or mom. Is there ample insurance in place? Is there an umbrella policy? Should their companion aid be driving their car, or should they be driving the companion aid's car? And these are all sorts of things that financially can impact in a family. Also, is making sure there's those policies in place that protect them. And not only from a tax standpoint, but from a financial standpoint.
I'm going to put everybody on the spot. and just as we sum up, if we could go and each of us just say the one thing from our world, from our profession, the one thing that we would want people to think about ahead of time. If you're watching this and you are a caregiver or you're planning ahead, what would that be? And to be fair, I'll start so that you can think. But there are so many things and so many different balls in the air that you have to pay attention to as a caregiver. Some of the things you intuitively know because we all get sick and we all die. But there are other things you don't even know the questions to ask. You couldn't possibly know unless you live this and you deal with it over and over and over again. So having said that, I think the single most important thing of everything that we do from an elder law perspective is the single most important device is a special kind of a power of attorney. It's the simplest of almost all of the documents we do, the least expensive of almost of everything that we do, but by far the most important. Because if you do a good, thorough, durable power of attorney, you have set in play a system to make sure that if you become incapacitated, you've picked the person or persons who can take care of things for you, but in a safe way. And an elder law specific power of attorney is going to deal with the things that we know are coming down the pike from a long-term care perspective. So a traditional power of attorney will say such things as, I give you the right to sign checks on my behalf. I give you the right to enter my safe deposit box or contact my insurance company and get information, or the normal things like that everybody would think of. But when we look at it from an elder law perspective, knowing the types of things that we are going to have to do with the government, with facilities, hospitals, and the like, we need specific language. We need, for example, the government says that if we're going to create certain kinds of trusts to protect income, that language must be specified in the power of attorney. And 99% of powers of attorney don't have that language in there, because even estate planning lawyers who do powers of attorney it's not part of their bailiwick. They're perfectly legal powers of attorney, but it's not done for this purpose. So when we're looking at long-term care issues, we want to make sure that we have a power of attorney that has all the right language, the ability to create these specialized trust agreements, these abilities to create transactions that allow us to protect assets and move things around in a way where there's no penalty, no look-back period, but we can qualify for assistance when we need it. The ability for our surrogates and powers of attorney to sign admissions papers at facilities without being liable personally for our bills. Because one of the tricks that sometimes nursing homes play, or hospitals play, is when you're admitting a loved one, and at that time you're not thinking about reading a sheaf of papers, but they put a sheaf of papers in front of you, and you have to sign it. It's an admission packet. Buried in these admissions papers are often guarantees of payment. Well, you're not liable for mom's bills, but if you sign these papers, you can be, because it says that somewhere in there often. So we want to make sure that we've taken care of that by signing the right way with the right documents. So again, I think from my perspective, if we do just one thing, and we're not even dealing with protection of assets or what happens after death, all those things are important too. The one thing would be a good, thorough, durable power of attorney that has all of the elder law language in it. Who wants to go next?
I will. I would say, don't wait. I see too many crisis situations where caregivers wait until they're in a crisis and now they've got to do something and they don't know where to go, what to do, how to do it. And unfortunately, they're going to end up being in a place or having their loved one go into a place that they never would have picked if they had made a plan. And so it doesn't hurt to ask questions. I want people to come in and I want them to sit down, and whether it takes an hour or 3 hours, it doesn't cost a penny to get the education and ask all your questions and get the power that you need in order to move forward to do the best and not wait for that. I know it's scary. You may never even have to use your plan, but if you have a plan and when the time comes and you have to place, you're going to be able to get into your first choice, which is your best choice. If you wait for a crisis, you may not even get in your second, third, or fourth choice, and you're going to be very, very upset. And so by making a plan and coming first into an assisted living, you can many times, I would say 9 out of 10 people that come into our dementia assisted living can actually avoid going to a nursing home if you don't wait. Because there are things that we can put in place to help you have your loved one there. It's much better to spend anywhere from $4,800 to $6,000 a month in a dementia-specific assisted living than it is to go into a nursing home and have to spend $8,000 or $9,000 a month. And it's all about planning. And so if you don't wait and come first into an assisted living, then possibly you can stay there till you go to heaven, and you'll be very happy because you'll have your first choice, you'll have quality of care, you'll have the peace of mind knowing that you have made a plan, and if something does happen, then you don't have to scramble, and you know exactly who to call, and they're going to help you through that process. So my biggest thing for caregivers is not to wait, and go ahead and make that phone call, come in, and be very happy to help them because it is hard. It is hard for the caregivers, and you're right, they don't know the questions to ask, but I'm going to bring those questions up, and we're going to help them, give them the answers before they even know what to ask. So don't wait.
I'll go next, going around the room. I think the most important thing is to ask questions. Ask questions that will really come down to what's going to be the best quality of care for your loved one. Make sure that the caregivers that are coming into your house are licensed, bonded, and insured. It's key. Your parents, if they have all of their marbles together, that's one thing. If they don't, it's even worse. So make sure the people coming in really, truly care. Find out, as your parents or loved ones' care needs change, how adaptable is the agency that you're working with? Can they switch the care on a moment's notice? What are they doing to monitor your parents? A lot of times the family members are out of town. So make sure that they're keeping you in the loop of what's going on. If there's a red flag, that they're bringing in other resources, and go with your gut.
Okay. I think the single most important thing you can do is have good, honest communication. Nobody wants to have this conversation, it seems, but you have to have the conversation. I know around the holidays when we usually are out speaking, we'll say, this is the perfect time. It may not seem it, but you're all there, you're all at the table. And I'll often say, you tell people, oh, I heard this lawyer speak, and they really said we should have this conversation. Blame us. It's okay to use that if it's going to spark a discussion that really needs to happen. If you don't communicate and those around you know what you want, then you're going to end up either with what they think is best for you, or just where things are going to happen to you that they can't even control just to get something done. So communication is key, and constant, honest communication. You can't tell your loved ones what you think they want to hear. You have to be honest enough to tell them about what your vision is for your quality of life and for your loved ones and your circle of support's quality of life. Another important point to be made is that, especially for those of you that are caregivers, is not to forget to communicate about yourselves, not just the person you're caring for. There is such a thing as caregiver syndrome, and we see, I think the statistic that your dad throws out is 67% of the time.
64% of family caregivers who don't get help pre-deceased, the family member. with Alzheimer's?
So communicate, not just about the people you're caring for, but yourselves as well.
And Michelle's totally, I think it's great that we both agree on the same thing, is that communication and not feeling like you're a burden, and encouraging our clients to understand they aren't a burden to their children or loved ones. They actually create more of a burden by not being honest. So I wholeheartedly agree, is to open up those lines of communication and be proactive and not reactive, because everything can go smoothly, as smooth as one can hope for, if there's a plan in place. And if your parents aren't bringing it up, then certainly the children at these family events can, hey, mom and dad, do you have a plan? Or hey, grandma, or whoever, is to start talking. We stopped talking and started texting and going on Facebook and being so computerized. Start having these open lines of communication, because it's then that you're going to really understand what's going on in their worlds and can plan for every person who deserves to have quality of life and dignity, and living that quality of life and making sure they're in the right place at that moment for their lives. And that's the number one thing I get to stress all the time, and I hope if a takeaway for anybody is start talking, know what's going on, because that Marcia mentions about personality, these stories, their lives, their backgrounds, whether they were a Holocaust survivor or they've been through some sort of traumatic situation, is you have to understand your client and understand the dynamic they're living their lives in, and open up those lines of communication. That is the number one thing I can also stress.
Be prepared.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say, we're speaking to you from the Memory Disorder Center, the Green Memory Disorder Center at Florida Atlantic University. Wherever you are in the country and you're watching this, know that there are resources in your community that you can plug into. And I think that one of the common threads that you're getting from everybody here on the panel is it's about preparation and knowledge. And you can't figure it out on your own. I'm sorry, don't try this at home. At least don't try it at home alone. Reach outside your home into the elder care community and plug in. And there are numerous resources: social service agencies, memory disorder centers, elder law firms, home health agencies, and there's a lot of resources on the internet. Obviously, you have to, read what you find on the internet, and understand its source and think that through too. But good luck to you as caregivers, and thank you for watching.